just the thinking behind your team. Nice, obviously, to have a guy like Johan returning from injury, and then a chance for Dion Slow at that lock.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's trained really well, and he has played against the Lions many times for the Pumas as well, so it's not like it's new territory for him. And it gives us a chance to rotate a bit as well, as I said the whole time, because, you know, we just got to make sure we use our resources for the whole season, because once we get over this little bit of a break, then it's like, you know, then it's European Cup games and URC games back to back, you know, literally all the way to June. So, yeah, I'm confident. I mean, they've been training well, good group, and a nice bench to have as well. So, you know, it's also quite nice. You look at our bench, you know, literally could finish with Cameron and Marcel and Reinhard Ludwig, you know, and Johan Grubler. And obviously the others are guys as well, but that's a lot of experience we can bring on back at the back end of the game.
Yeah. Just to confirm, Canan and Kurt Lee.
Yeah, so Kurtley's had to go to a funeral. So he's had a bereavement in his family. Canan is actually a really interesting story. I did a study from January 20 last year to January now. He's played 15 games on the bench or started for South Africa or the Bulls. And it makes me think that we're going to have to relook at this 5-week break or 8-week break players get. They're going to try and do it on individual basis. Because a guy like him that's 20 needs to play. And if you consider he's played 15 games of rugby, of which not all are starts. The last 4 months he's played 4 games of rugby. And then he has to take 8 weeks off because it's a, you know, obligatory SA rugby rule. So I'm a little bit, you know, he's come back and he's not ready to play. He's been to Bali on holiday. And, you know, there's no ways I can put him on, and you can't pick a team where the guy's not 80 minutes ready, because, you know, it's detrimental to everybody. And what message that it send out to Sebastian and to Sergio that train and play so well, you know. So I'm sort of hoping that the lessons we learned, I've been reading about Ireland and England and all those players, that they're looking at individualizing. Even Scott Robinson was talking with the All Blacks. I think we're going to have to relook at this leave and compulsory leave and on an individual basis, because there's no doubt in my mind, him only playing 15 games, and I stress, not all starters and not all 80 minutes is a minimal amount of rugby for a young guy who's supposed to be developing, considering he came out of a COVID year where he didn't play rugby. So I mean, you took it in the last 4 years, it's not much rugby this guy's playing, and we all think he's going to be one of the superstars.
It's interesting.
Jack, you're touching on a very interesting subject there. It's the science of sports, obviously, and you've obviously made use of Tim Noakes and Ross Tucker and those guys previously. Are you doing it with these guys as well?
Yeah.
And at the Science Institute?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, rugby's become so scientific now with your sports analysts and GPS and all the sort of stuff they use now, Simon. So, you know, I used those guys in the past when it was still very at the infancy stage of sports science. I mean, using a guy like Tim Noakes and obviously those guys who were in the head office there. But it's advanced so much now. You know, if you consider, as I said, how much GPS data you get and what you can use it for, and, you know, there's obviously chips in the ball now as well that track the ball. But I go back to the point I'm making. You know, a guy like Canan needs to play rugby. You know, I said to him this morning, it's like a professional golfer doesn't play in tournaments. You know, you can be a professional golfer, hit as many golf balls on the driving range. You can putt all day on a putting green. If you don't play in tournaments, you don't become, you know, you don't get better as a professional golfer. So, you know, I go back to what I said. I think we're going to have to relook at how this leave works and the merits of individualizing it. Some guy who's been out for X amount of time, you know, a guy like Canan he's been injured many times with his hamstring. The last thing I need now is bring him back from a holiday, put him on the field. He's out for another 6 weeks. So conditioners and the sports scientists and the feedback you get is he needs time to catch up to the other players.
So, a follow-up on the tournament itself. It is probably an open secret that the Lions have decided that they will concentrate more on the URC than on the other competitions that they're involved in. Not that you guys were caught on the back foot last year, but are you more sort of organized this year with a bunch of competitions that you're in, especially on the URC, your choices, your management of your team, etc., etc.?
Yeah, I mean, because when you say caught on the back foot, I think a lot of things went wrong for us at the beginning of last year, as you know, schedule, kind of games we played, injuries, staff that were, you know, not available when I was sick. So there are a lot of things that contributed to that. But I also don't think you must underestimate the Lions are, when they're on song, are a good side to play against, and they're a difficult side to play against. So, luckily, I mean, I've been here 4 years, we've only lost to the Lions once, and that was last year. So, I mean, historically, we've had a good record against the Lions. And if you consider, I think the Lions beat the Stormers, and the Stormers went on to win the URC. So it shows you they're not a easy side to play against. But a lot of things have changed. Squad's changed. We're a year down the lines, and we prepared. We prepared as well as we can. So it's not a case of what are you expecting? I'm expecting the Lions to come here. A lot of the boys stay in Pretoria. A lot of them have played at the Bulls. There's altitude and 33 degrees tomorrow. It's not surprisingly for them. They live in the area, and they live in the province. So some of them that literally live in Pretoria and drive through to Ellis Park for training. So I'm expecting another great game. They want to take the tournament seriously, as you say, but so do we. We want to make sure at the back end of the comp we're there to be in the playoffs. So it's going to be a massive game for us.
Last one about stats, and I know that you give a lot of value on stats, on applicable stats as well. I think you've 60 odd more points this season up to this stage than you had last season. Yeah. But also the defense of the Lions has been improved tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think the last sort of 5-6 games that we scored close to 50 points in every single game. So if you consider all the the Connaughts, the Leinsters, the Scarlets, the Bordeaux, whatever, we've scored almost 50 points on average per game. Yeah, so it is a ground that we play well in, and it is a ground we attack well in. I mean, up to last week, our defence was outstanding. Obviously giving Bordeaux 6 tries is not ideal, but you're talking about a very good Bordeaux team. And defensively, we are better this year. I mean, you look at, like you're quite right, we're 60 points up on our attack, but we're far, far better defensively than we were this time last year as well. So, it's something that we're going to have to make sure we get consistency in our attack and our defence, because as we get into the back end of all these comps, I mean, the competition is going to get tougher and tougher. Knockout games now in Europe, Lyon here, Leinster away still. There's a lot of games that we need to make sure we're going to be good enough. So it is something we're proud of, and we're working on, is that our attack is generally top class. But we're still looking for that perfect performance. We're looking for that, and when you want it in the big games, in the big moments.
Jack, at 9 and 10 is continuity big focus point there?
Yeah, Kobus, it's the interesting thing. I was talking to a player, asking me, when will I get another chance, and I'm not going to tell you it was, but it was a player, and I said to him, there's so many things that a coach has to think about. If you bring X amount of players back from injury, and you have too many, then you have too many newbies that need game time together, which is also, it influences your performance. If you change too many positions, then it influences your performance. So something has to sort of stay in line, and one of the things we're lucky enough, Imbro is playing really well, and I don't think Willie and Goose have had enough time together to gel as a 10-15 combination. So, it's not just the fact that 9 and 10 need to be consistent, it's just the game time that we get with Willie and we get with Johan, because I think the one thing they prove is when they're on song together, it's very difficult for defences to read them. They've shown that even when they were at Free State, they played together at Free State, and I still see clips of the two of them, interchanging and attacking together, and it's very difficult for defences to read them.
And just lastly, with the Lions, do you believe that last year's result will give them a lot of confidence? Especially after they also beat the Sharks and
I'm sure, and they're playing well. They're not they're not an easy side to play against. They do lots of things well. It's not like they have an area where you can, their scrum is strong, their line out is strong. Defensively, they've gone up a gear. We always know they can attack. I mean, they don't mind giving the ball a lot of air and trying to move you around the field. So I'm sure they'll get a confidence. They beat us last year, and I'm sure they'll talk about that, just like we do. But it's no different whether we're playing Bordeaux this weekend or whether we play Lions. We want to play as well as we can, and all coaches want to do is see the little pieces coming together as the tournament gets deeper and deeper into the playoffs.
And just an update on Johannes and Jewe Steenkamp.
So Johannes, Veer, Johan for Mark, those guys are all, luckily we only have this game, then a couple of weeks off, and then we have one game, and then a couple of weeks off, and then another game. So I'm hoping by the time we get to the month of the Stormers, that all those guys, all of them will be available to be part of the team. If not, and there's the dilemma, because you can't bring en masse 5, 6, 7 of them into the starting lineup, otherwise you sit with the same problem. So hopefully they're all available, and in the next March of that block, in that next block, I can interchange guys and give guys game time and make sure that we have the strongest possible team when we need them when we get to those major games.
Coach? Sorry, Coach. With the season being where it's at the moment in the URC, you've spoken about pushing for the playoffs.
Yes.
How important is it to pick up points as much as you can now and not leave yourself, too much to do later on, as the round robin stage kind of finishes?
Yeah, you don't want the bottom line in any sporting team. You want to have your destiny in your own hands. You don't want to be getting to the back end of a competition where you need certain people to beat certain people for you to get into playoffs. And as it stands now, we're top of the South African teams with a game in hand. So we still can really control our own destiny. And we've got a really good record at Loftus. I know we lost last year once or twice to Stormers and Lions, but historically over the last 4 years, I think we must have a 90% win rate at Loftus. So I saw a stat the other day, I'm not sure if you saw it, but 18 times we've played against European opposition since I've been here, and we've won all 18 at home against European opposition. I don't think there's another team that's got that record. So it is something that we managed to do well.
Coach, is there a difference in mentality as to when you juggle two different competitions, two different, I can say, intensity and stuff, or is always just more of the same?
Look, I'd like to believe there isn't, and there shouldn't be, but sometimes a player, and we got 3 competitions, so you say 2, when you get to the Currie Cup this year as well, some players feel that if you pick them for the Currie Cup, it's almost like they've been sent to the B team. And I think it's a little bit like the olden days. It's the layover from what happened when you played Super Rugby and went to Vodacom Cup. So a lot of players feel that if you don't pick them in the starting Super Rugby team, and I'm talking about in those days, or whether it's in the URC or Champions Cup team, you're almost demoting them to the. So what we're working hard on at the Bulls is that shouldn't be the case. When you play for the Bulls or you play in a light blue jersey, it doesn't matter which competition, you've got to play as well as you can, and you got to get a result. So it is something we're conscious of. But it has been in the past a situation where one competition takes, whether you like it or not, takes precedence by the public, by the media, by the supporters, and we're going to have to push hard as a group to make sure we don't get caught in that.
Last week in the last 20 minutes or so, the Bulls seemed to lose a bit of focus there, and the replacements didn't seem to gel all that well. And also your bench this week seems to be very, very quick and everything. Is that something that is a specific choice you made to address that kind of problem?
Yeah, well, that's exactly one of the reasons why I went with what I did today. I don't want to get caught again like that. I don't want to get caught when one of the interesting things, I looked at the back end of that game, and we didn't have bad players. There were good players on the field, but they've never been together. And they'd never even trained together. I'm talking about that combination. We change a lot, we move guys around, but what are the chances of what we finished with there? And it's no one's fault, it's just through circumstance. We finished with that group of players, and I just felt that the learnings of that is that we've got a bench now that if we finish, and as I said to you, finish Cameron at 8, Marcel in Marco's place, Ulrich at 7, that combination's played as a starting group. If you go Reinhard Ludwig with Ruan Nokia, they've started as a combination. So slowly, and Grobies has thrown to both those locks, whether it was, it wasn't obviously in the last 5-6 weeks, but it has been in the last 2-3 years. So, slowly what happens is, without knowing it, you finish up with a group that's a little bit more settled. Last week, it just by circumstance happened that when I looked at the team that was on finishing the game, it looked like they were a bit disjointed, and rightly so.
And your scrums, how much were you affected by Wilpelow's injury? How much do you think it's still on the same level or not?
No, I think, look, anyway, he's a world-class tight end, and everyone knows, I've said this many times, Doc Craven was asked once what is the most important position on the field. He said tight end prop. And they asked him the second most important guy, and he said the reserve tight end prop. And that's never going to change. So that's where we are. We got a tight end prop who's out. We know what Malherbe meant to the Stormers over their glory years in the last couple of seasons. And yes, that you do get opportunities for other props like Mornay and obviously Netling for Shea, and those guys put their hands up. But I mean, nothing buys experience, you know. So, but you know, again, saying that, that's, you know, we haven't had Springboks for a couple of weeks, and those guys who've stepped up have played really well. So I've got no doubt that's one of the challenges all teams have, and the way you get it right is those players put their hands up.
And Grobby's all ready to go.
Grobby's all ready to go. Yeah. I mean, you can't wait. You know, the guys, as I said, he's been chomping at the bit. He's here every day. You know, he's a consummate professional in the gym, stretching, doing it. He has to. No side effects on his hamstring. So hopefully we'll get him some game time tomorrow, and then it's all back to square one where 3 hookers are vying for 2 positions. How's it, Sam?
I suppose the question to ask is about the changing DNA of Bulls rugby.
Yes.
Obviously now versus the old days.
Yes.
I don't know how many offloads you guys had in your game against Bordeaux.
23.
Yeah, exactly.
23,
So
yeah.
it was just offload head, and I see that you guys' motto is something along the lines of the quickest ruck is no ruck.
Yes.
Just take me through why you think it's so important to go in that direction. That's the first part of the question, and the second part is your defense coach miffed with you, because obviously if it goes wrong, that's the point.
Yeah, so 2 really good questions. So, and firstly, let me say well done that you've picked it up, because I mean, some guys would say it was Jake ball, you know, and it was Warren ball, you know. So I'm glad you guys have picked up that we don't play that kind of rugby. And the reasons are quite simple. One is that's the way the game's going now. 2 is I've been lucky enough to coach in Japan, France, Australia, and I've been managed to be able to add more strings to my bow as a coach. I think the Bulls have got no doubt that historically they have a DNA, and we're never going to go away from that DNA as an opportunity to use it. You still need big forwards, you still need big ball carriers, you still need a good set piece, you still need to have certain positions where you have depth in those positions. That's one of the secrets of the Bulls. We look in the glory days to have Donnie Rousseau playing number 8 and Pierce Spies playing number 8. I mean, that just shows you what kind of depth they had. 2 guys, you know, World Cup winners. And those are the boxes you've got to tick as the Bulls coach. But the game's changing, guys. And you can see, you know, one of the things Simon will know when I started, I said, teams that win competitions are the teams that score the most points. Crusaders, you know, Brumbies in their glory days. You look at those teams, the competitions they win, you know, you've got Panasonic playing in Japan, they score the most, Suntory score the most points, and inevitably they're always near the top or winning the competition. So Sim, it's the game's changing, the body shape of players is changing, defenses are getting better. I think players are becoming a lot more much more educated about the game than it was, because they spend so much more time studying, you know, games and opposition, etc. And does it affect the defense? Of course it does. I think one of the things that rugby has become, it's a little bit like football. It's the ability to understand transition. So you look at the good football sides, the ones that turn the ball over are the ones that get it back quicker. And the ones that are really good football sides are the ones that when it gets turned over, they punish you. And there's a lot of synergy between football coaches and rugby coaches now. You look at coaches are meeting with football coaches and discussing the ability to understand transition, the ability to close off teams when it's unstructured. You know, one of the things that happened, and I don't want to give you a rugby lesson, but in the olden days, you would spend 2 hours of training. The forwards coach would stand at the line out for 1 hour and 59 minutes, and they would do the line outs and scrums, and then they would do shadow, and then they would go home. You know, now you could play a game where the opposition give you 6 lineouts, and of those 6 lineouts, 3 are in your 22. So you got to just exit. So you think about it. I mean, having a forwards coach who stands there all day having 47 variations of a lineout, and the opposition don't give you a lineout, it is obviously important. So I go back to the point about the defense coach. The defense coach, the ability to defend and get turnover ball where we can play, and get guys like Canan and Kirkley and Billy and those guys to punish you because they understand that they're attacking unstructured defense. And conversely, the defense coach, the teaching of getting a team to react from unstructured into structured defense is a skill now as well. And that comes with cohesion, that comes with selection, that comes with game understanding. So yeah, it's defensive coaches in the old days would say, don't run out of your 22 because then I'm going to get punished as a defense coach. But I think defensive coaches now understand the best opportunity is the picture in front of you and the ability to coach that.
One about the Lions. What's your analysis of why they've been so competitive this season?
Well, I don't think just this season. I think generally they've been growing and growing and growing, and they are that team. The style they play is difficult. It's difficult to play against because that understanding, again, what I've just said to you, Sim, they have a great ability to attack from into unstructured, and they're not scared to have a go at that. And they're a group of players that want to prove something, and it's like anything, you know. It's a little bit like a heavyweight boxer that grows up in the Bronx. You know, he's going to be tougher than the one who lives in Hollywood. And they've built this team together. They've got lots of guys who have come through together. You know, some of them see this as an opportunity to take the next step up, and that's why they're so difficult to play, because they look as though they're desperate to do well, and that's always a dangerous thing when you're playing against a team like that. So, you know, well coached, stayed together a long time. You know, they've been building for a while, and they do most of the things well. You know, when I say most of the things, they scrum well, they maul well, they keep the ball well. Defensively, they've improved. So yeah, they make it difficult for you to play against. I mean, to take a team like they did to Montpellier, I coached in Montpellier. Take a team like that and lose 13-3 in Montpellier gives you a lot of confidence, because literally up to the last play, I mean, that one player dropped the ball over, it's 13-10. That's not a bad. There's not many French sides that go to Montpellier and lose by 3 points. Yeah.
Good day, Coach. Coach, you spoke about how competitive the Lions are, not only in this season but also in the previous season. So my question is, based on all the teams that comes from South Africa that are playing the URC, what chance, if you were to do your analysis since from the beginning of the league, do they stand actually to walk away victorious or with the title come end of the season of the URC?
Yeah, look, I mean, that's a difficult one. I just think they've improved, and they do things they do very well. Whatever style it almost looks like they all understand what they're trying to do, and that's always a good thing, because it means that they're all on the same page. It's not like they play individually. You know, if you look at that team, it's not like one or two guys stand out. I mean, they literally, as a group, are play as a group, and that would be their strength. And you know, that's why having guys like I said, Kobus, where we have guys like Sergio and Sebastian playing well, you got to, you know, I'd much rather have a guy that's ready and wants to play than a big name that's not ready, because big names don't win against the Lions.
Jake, when you started off here, and you might mention another fact that we recall that when you started off, you said when you put on that blue jersey,
Yeah.
you've got to earn that blue jersey.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's gone that way,
Yes.
and your players has bought into that.
Yeah.
Comment on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, Simon, I go back to, I mean, playing for the Bulls is, it's a massive honour. This is a big club, you know. I mean, this club's beaten Saracens, this club's beaten Bordeaux, you know, this club's beaten SAA, you know, this club's beaten British Irish Lions, this club. So, you know, what we want boys that come into our club is to understand, you know, you need to take the next step up and you need to fight for your jersey, you know. And if you look at our team, you know, Canan Moodie not available, Ruan for Mark not available, Wilco not available, Grobbies wasn't available for a while. And all that's happened is the competition's getting better and better, and that's what you need as a coach. You need guys to be fighting, you know, tooth and nail to play for the province. It can never just be a gimme, you know? And that's something internally we talk about a lot, you know. So therefore, as a coach, you get challenged, because when you pick the team, you can't just say that and then you bring a guy back and automatically he just walks into the team, because you lose the credibility of yourself with the group. And it is something that is important to us. You know, the jersey is, unfortunately, light blue jersey is the one we win in. The white one is the one we struggle with. So we need to have a relook at that comment about, you know, maybe we've got to say playing in a Bulls jersey is. But I have been teased many times, because away jersey, the white one is the one we struggle with. The light blue one is the one we play our best rugby in. So
Still better than the pink one.
correct.
Or the camo one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jake.
I just want to ask you something else that we were asked about, the fact that the Bulls looked so flat-footed sometimes on defence last week.
Yeah.
Like they were almost not expecting to defend to a degree, if you understand.
Yeah.
What do you think happened there? What went wrong?
Okay, I'm hoping that the answer I give you is the right one, and I'm saying because I told the players this. If you fly to Bristol and you fly via Dubai and you land in Bristol and you play and you fly back to Dubai and your luggage comes late and your bags don't come, and by the time you get to Loftus it's 3 o'clock on a Monday when you played Saturday at 5 o'clock, I'm thinking that's probably what's going to happen. You can't expect players just to be, you can't. I mean, I'm hoping that that's the answer, and I'm hoping this week I'll be proved right. But I just looked at the team exactly that, and I thought, gee, we look like we're 1 yard too slow on the cleanouts. We're 1 yard too slow on reacting to defence. You know, we look as though we're lump and flat-footed, and I'm putting it down to the fact that if you just take it back and you go, right, from Monday or Tuesday you leave for Bristol via London. So you go Dubai, London, bus from London, which is 4 hours, to Bristol, and you might say it's 2 hours, but it's 4 hours because by the time you get your luggage and everyone gets on the bus, whatever, so you get there, you got massages scheduled for 3 o'clock, but you get there at 5 o'clock. I mean, everything just has a domino effect, and therefore, I'm hoping that was a reason we looked a yard short. This week we've trained a bit differently. We slept in our own beds. And obviously there's a couple of changes to the group, which means there's some new vitalized energy, and I'm hoping tomorrow we look as though we're sharp again.